So about 3 months ago, I finally decided to do DSA along with my full-time job. So today I will be sharing the progress I have made in last 100 days. But before that, let's start with a quick introduction. So my name is
नाम है बुल्ला रखता हूँ खुल्ला
I am a software engineer with 5 years of experience. Initially, I started as a backend developer with Node.js, but now I am working as a front-end developer. and also let's talk about why I have decided to do DSA after working in the industry for 5 years. So I started coding back in 2019 while I was in my second year of college doing BSc Maths honors. And maths में मुझे कोई scope या future नहीं दिख रहा था. So I started learning web development as a hobby. And then as I progressed, I started getting paid gigs, and by the end of 2021, I was working in a remote startup earning in 6 figures. Because 3 or 4 years ago, the market was so rewarding, you just needed to be a decent developer in order to make good money. But now, in this AI era and current market trends, there is an unlimited supply of engineers for a very limited demand. So now, in order to stand out, you need to have a good problem solving skills, you need to be a very strong developer, and also you need to have a strong core foundation of computer science. And since I do not have any tech degree, so I finally decided after 5 years to achieve the wisdom I might have missed. And plus, I'm targeting a role in a decent product based company, and to get that, DSA and system design are not really optional. So now let's talk about what I did in last 100 days, how much I have progressed in DSA, what course I have chosen, what sheet I have followed to solve the question. सो आपको डीएस से शुरू करने के लिए पहले एटलीस्ट बेसिक्स ऑफ प्रोग्रामिंग आने चाहिए, जैसे कि हाउ फंक्शन वर्क्स, यू शुड बी एबल टू राइट बेसिक फॉर लूप्स, व्हाइल लूप्स, perform some sort of comparison and mathematical operation. You should be comfortable in those. And also you need to be comfortable with the syntax of any one programming language. It could be Java, it could be Python, it could be C++. In my case, since I am a front-end developer, I have chosen JavaScript because I will be interviewing in this same language and the interviewers would expect me to write all the solutions in JavaScript. So that's why I decided to do this in JavaScript only. So now coming on to what course I have chosen. क्योंकि मैं data structure पहली बार ही पढ़ रहा था, so I started to go with the course rather than directly jumping onto the question sheet. This is the course by Cold Steel on Udemy, which I did, and this is a course for 21.5 hours and the price is about 500. I did not pay for it. I just used my brother's Udemy subscription provided by his company. And the name of the course is JavaScript Algorithms and Data Structure Masterclass by Cold Steel. So this is a pretty much beginner friendly course. There is no prerequisite except for these two. So now coming on to the content of this course. So this starts with the big O notation. He talks about how to figure out the time complexity and space complexity of a solution. ये बात करते हैं कि कैसे आप जो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते हो on a smaller data set, it does not scale as it is for bigger data sets. So why you need to perform some sort of optimizations, किस तरह के decisions आपके कोड को optimize कर सकते हैं, उस तरह की इसमें बातें होती हैं. Then for the next section, he talks about the inbuilt data structures of JavaScript, like arrays, objects. So he talks about what is their performance in terms of the big O notation, which was taught in the first section. And then he moves on to some problem solving patterns. In this, he talks about the generic problem solving approaches, like which is not only limited to computer science. He talks about how you should break down the problems into sub problems. You should try to figure out a solution of a smaller problem first and then figure out how you can use it to get to the actual solution. He talks about those kind of techniques, and then he moves on to some problem solving patterns which are very common in solving DSA and algorithm questions, like divide and conquer, sliding window, binary search, frequency counter, using hash maps, things like that. And then he talks about recursion, and then he moves on to linear search, binary search, basically how you. And then for the section 6, that's where it gets little bit interesting. So he talks about the common sorting algorithms like bubble sort, selection sort, insertion, merge, quick, radix. So all these are explained with proper diagrams and presentation and all the visual graphics. And then also when he codes the implementation, he also does a dry run without skipping any value or without assuming that this is very obvious, you will be able to understand it. So the best part about this instructor is he never really skips the basic part as well. So all of these are like explained in great detail, and the lectures are quite interesting as well. I was never really bored throughout the section except for one section. highlighted in red, which I will come back to later. And then he starts with the basic data structure. So in the data structure section, a particular approach is followed. First, he talks about what the data structure is, what is its real life use case. Then he does the implementation in JavaScript. And at the end of each section, there is a question set where there are 5 or 6 questions given to you. The data structures discussed in this course are singly linked list, doubly linked list, stacks and queues, and then trees. At trees it starts getting a little bit intermediate. Like from trees you will not be able to keep up with the same pace which you have kept for the course so far. You have to go down a little slow from this point. Like trees and graph, binaries, things like that are not very intuitive at first. You need to watch the lectures again and again. You need to practice the stuff again and again. So he talks about trees, binary heaps, hash tables, graph. For graphs, he talks about types of graph, creating graph, traversing, very famous Dijkstra's algorithm. And then the last section of this course is dynamic programming. And I am not very happy with what is covered for this section. So I just did it for the sake of completing the course, but it didn't make much sense to me. And I learned dynamic programming through Anush Sharma's channel on YouTube later on while I was working on one of the question sheet. So now let's talk about the timeline. So this is a 22 hours course and it took me 52 days to complete it along with the revision. So basically I did a lot of revision and every day if I have learned about big O notation, even if it is very basic, even if I knew it already, I just practiced it. I tried to figure out the space complexity, time complexity, or when it moved on to data structure, the instructor discussed about trees or graphs and he showed some sort of algorithm. So I made sure to practice every algorithm and I also had some reserved revision days. And by the end of the course, like after going through the dynamic programming, I basically did a backtrack revision. I started from the dynamic programming and went all the way back to these problem solving questions. So I did a revision again of the whole course. So I'm talking about everything. It took me 52 days to complete this course where I actually felt comfortable talking about any topic from the course or attempt any question which was a part of course. So then after completing the course, I had to pick up a question sheet, a DSA question sheet to follow. And since I am preparing for front-end roles and DSA rounds for front-end positions are relatively easier or easier questions are asked as compared to backend or full stack developers. So I started with the basic lead code blind 75 list and instead of doing it on lead code, I practiced this on the neetcode.io. So why not lead code? So like for starters, neetcode.io is a great platform for beginners. So for every question which is a part of neetcode.io, there is a solution video attached to it, which is created on the YouTube channel of the owner of this platform. Wherever you are stuck, you can just watch the YouTube video for the solution. For lead code blind 75, I guess 6 or 7 questions were logged. You need to be on the premium of lead code to attempt those. So that's why I decided to just do it on the neetcode.io. So the approach I followed while I was doing those questions, on every alternate day, I have gone through my notes from the course. So for every solution, I tried to get to at least brute force solution. So I try for 20 to 40 minutes. If I'm not able to get anywhere, I just simply go to ChatGPT or watch the inline hints from the NeetCode platform itself. If I'm able to create at least brute force solution, then I'm happy. If I'm not able to do anything, I just go to the solution video, I watch it thoroughly, and then after watching the solution, I try to attempt it myself. And then the most important part, I just go to the network tab, I open my debugger tool, and I always do a dry run on copy and also on the debugger tool in order to actually understand the concept or the algorithm behind the question. And that's when your understanding gets really concrete, when you do dry runs and do debugging of the solution algorithm. So every time I'm stuck on the question, and for this 75, initially only I was able to do 20 to 25 solutions by myself. For the rest of the question, I either need to go to ChatGPT or watch the solution video. So these are the channels I followed to understand the algorithm behind or understand some concept on data structure and algorithms. And I have done the bit manipulation series from this channel. So this is a Hindi channel and it is very interesting. None of the lectures were boring and I was able to understand bit manipulation, and he made it really easy. So if you want to do bit manipulation, this is the channel you should look for. And neat code, obviously, whenever I'm stuck on any question, there is an inline YouTube video attached to right on the left side of the question. You could just watch the solution. And then for some question where I did not understand the solution given by neat code, I go to Take You Forward, and this is a channel by Striver. This is a very popular channel, especially in Indian developer ecosystem. These are the channels I followed whenever I was stuck. So now let's talk about the timeline of this 75 question. So in order to do these 75 question, it took me 47 days, then 3 days extra for revising all these question on a separate neetcode.io. I created new neetcode.io account and I attempted all these questions without looking at my notes, without looking at any hints, and I was able to successfully submit the solution for around 71. For the 4 question I was not able to do it, so I took either the help from my notes or just was the already submitted version on my other account. So now comes the most important part, how I managed to stay consistent for 100 days. And if you take a look closely, I was not really consistent for all 100 days. So there were a lot of days missed, and there are some days where like the commits were not really meaningful. I just did a lot of these commits just to stay on the streak. There are some days where I did not study anything. I just added a comment on my repo and just pushed it just to have the green dot. And these green dots were a real help in order to keep me consistent for 100 days. So what I did, I created a GitHub repository and I did a promise to myself that I will do a daily practice and I will do at least one daily commit to this repo. And every time I open my profile, I look at this green dot. It felt good. Every time I opened my profile, I did not find a green dot against any day. It made me feel bad. So, and I guess that was pretty much it to keep me motivated and consistent. These green dots, the brighter they are, the higher dopamine hit you will get. Like, this is really helpful. I was able to do it for 100 days and I will again rely on this, connecting whatever project I am doing, whatever sheet I am doing to GitHub in order to stay consistent. So how I managed it with my full-time job. So every day I tried to give at least 1 hour before 10 a.m., which is the start of my working hours in my job. And then I did 1 to 2 hours after finishing up my shift. I usually did this slot after 7:30 to 9 in the evening. And I avoided the late night studies as much as I could to prevent burnouts. And also another thing, when I studied up till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., I was not able to sleep for next 3 hours. I don't know why, but my brain just kept running very fast. So that's why I avoided the late night studies to prevent my sleep and prevent burnouts. And I also took regular breaks to unwind, like 1, 2, 3, like wherever there is missed days of more than 1 or 2 days, I was either on a trip or it was an intentional break. And also for NeetCode 75 submission, it provides you the option to connect it to your GitHub account. And you can, so every submission you do, it will just do a commit on your repository. So it is also another good way to stay consistent. And now let's talking about the mistakes I did. So initially, the first or the major mistake which everyone does when you are about to learn something new is the over expectation. You tend to apply a lot of math. So I also did that. So I just did a basic math. 21-hour course equals to 21 days. I will do 4 questions daily for 25 days, 100 questions. And then I'm done with the DSA for 2 months. And as you can already see, the reality is completely different. So the problem with over expectation is that when you are not able to follow those unrealistic deadlines, so it puts an additional pressure on you and it makes the journey really frustrating. And then you try to skim through the content or skim through the questions without understanding the algorithm. And then when you come back to it later, you are not able to do it. It makes you more frustrated and you end up wasting a lot more time than you would have done initially if you didn't overplan. And another mistake is juggling between courses and playlists. I compared my courses with others. Mine is only 21 hour long. It is pretty much beginner. I compared it to other courses on the market. There were like 80 hours, 60 hours. I was in doubt whether I should watch my course or I should follow somebody else's. I should learn another language like C++ or Java. Why no one is doing DSA in JavaScript? All those questions, but my suggestion would be to just pick a course, stick to it, complete it, and then start with any question sheet. And fourth one is pretty much, I've already talked about this, prevent burnouts, because you will end up getting very frustrated. And another one is, so every question in LeetCode are tagged based on the difficulty. There are 3 categories: easy, medium, and hard. But these categories are not always tagged accurately. Sometimes there is an easy question. You will not be able to do it if you do not already know the algorithm behind it. And then if you are not able to do it, you tend to question your abilities, that this is an easy question. If I'm not able to do this, how I would be able to solve the hard questions in interview? So this is like, you should keep your emotions and ego aside. These are algorithms which were developed during years of studies and research. So you just need to know the algorithms. There are some algorithms you cannot really come up with on a fly. So you need to like study and practice more, then they will set into your brain and you will be able to apply those on different questions. So now talking about revision strategy. So I practiced whatever I learned almost immediately or on the same day. I maintained notes for every question, for every topic I did in last 100 days. So good thing about writing notes, so when you have studied something and now you have sat down to write it, like when you write it down, you will think very slow. And when you think slow, you will be able to realize the gaps. Like when you were watching the tutorial, things made more sense, but now you have slowed yourself down, you're writing on a sheet of paper. Now you have realized there were some gaps and you should fill those gaps. You should ask for clarification to ChatGPT or watch the videos again and again, but you should do those immediately. If you do that, they will sink in like forever. You will not forget it soon. And I also made a habit of visiting my notes on every Sunday. And I also had a cheat sheets, like quick cheat sheets for every question I do, basically like a pseudo code. And I have gone through these cheat sheets almost every day or every alternate days at least. And I have prioritized scheduling the revision sessions. So for example, on my blind 75 question list, after doing graphs and trees, like the solutions were not very intuitive. It took me a lot of effort to actually understand those. So I took a break, I did a revision, I attempted those questions again from scratch, I tried to do them myself. Only then I moved on to the DP. Because DP itself was pretty hard initially, but once you do 2, 3, 4 questions, then things starts to make sense and you will find it easier and you will be able to figure out a pattern. Now let's talk about the bumpers I faced. So while I have to unwind myself, I have gone to 2 or 3 vacations, or I just took a 2-3 days off. So never take more than couple of days off, because it makes it very hard to come back to the same rhythm and routine. So if you want to unwind, 1 or 2 day gap is enough. So I did on more than 2 occasions where I just did not study for 3-4 days, and then it felt more difficult to get started again. And another thing is managing your emotions. So there will be self-doubts, and there will be good days as well. So I wrote it down. So don't feel like king on your good days, neither feel like loser on bad days. So you need to stay neutral. You need to keep your emotions under control. You need to like think in terms of problem. Either you are able to do it, or if you are not able to do it, you just get familiar with the algorithm and try not to make the mistake again, and try to remember the algorithm you have learned and apply it in the future questions. And there is a lot of content around DSA on YouTube where people are claiming they have done 1000 lead code problems. Some of them are claiming they have done 500 problems in 30 days because the math seems easy. 500 divided by some 30, you will get some number which looks achievable. So you should not get discouraged by these types of videos, because if you pay attention, most of them would be either unemployed or just faking it. And fourth is obviously prioritize your health, prioritize your sleep, self-doubts, everything is normal. You just have to go through it and don't quit. So now let's talk about what am I going to do from here. I will be following a NEET code 150, because for the same reason I am preparing for a front-end role at a product-based company. Because for a front-end developer role, for a certain level, system design and machine coding are more prioritized over DSA. DSA rounds are comparatively easier, so I will not grind lead code for another 6 months following a bigger sheet like Striver A to Z. It would be a overkill for my use case, but if you want to land a good job, or if you want to get so better at DSA, then Striver's A to Z sheet is what I would recommend. And so there is a great front-end platform. I will gather the list of all the DSA questions asked across the companies from this platform, and I will try to solve those. And from here on, I will also start preparing for system design, and also I will be working on 2-3 projects for my resume for next 2-3 months. And yes, that's pretty much it for the video. Thanks for watching, and wish me luck for my preparation.